What's going on in your world of making leather? What are the challenges keeping things held up?
You must have made somebody mad.
Yeah. In the end, like
Well,
if the product's nice, people will wait for it. I think
well,
that's the
but
most important
that's
thing.
that's unreasonable. I mean, that's on all from all directions. That's kind of an unacceptable amount of time to have to wait.
Mm.
And the realities are that if that's the truth, then that's what we have to tell. But the it's been a combination of things, right, at various times, and not always even the same thing all the time. But clearly, the most constant challenge we've had is uh, finding people. We're not special in that regard. That's all over all manufacturing, not just the U.S. It's a big deal for all of us. And I think what sort of gets us through the night on that one is, the bigger the obstacle, the greater the potential opportunity, right? I mean, that's if you can figure it out, then that puts you back in a place where you can do certain things that other people are not able to do. And so far, we haven't found the key or the combination that unlocks that lock. But we're working on it.
So, what do you think is slowing up the hiring process, or why can't you find enough people?
I don't know. I mean, you could ask any of us that have been on this merry-go-round trying to figure that out. I mean, it tends to be more than just money, although that certainly is a component of it. The work here is not easy, and the result is fabulous, but the day-to-day, hour-to-hour is not always glamorous. You have people who don't really want to put that much of themselves out there every hour of every day.
Well, can you guys explain what the jobs are like at Horween? For example, across the street from my shop, which I'm right up the block from you, there's a Chick-fil-A, and they have a big bold billboard sign outside the store that says, now starting at $17 an hour. What's the,
Right.
if you look at that kind of job, what's the difference in your world of a tannery? What's it like?
Well, there are a lot of different jobs. I mean,
You can take that one, Nick.
yeah,
Well, maybe start with what's the easiest like job in the shop?
the
Maybe
That's
easiest is a
mine, and I'm
weird.
not ready to retire.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe easiest is the not right word, and then it would just be Skip. Yeah.
Can you define easiest? Because the clerical jobs that are, they're not necessarily easy, but they're not. It's not like you need brute force to complete them. Then there are jobs that you don't have to think a whole lot to do them, but they require a lot of. They're very physically demanding.
So maybe Skip, what would you say would be the most physically demanding task?
Well, I mean, probably you probably would have used to say that it was running a fleshing machine. It's heavy, wet, and there's a lot of them. We don't do much of that here any longer, so it's got to be somewhere between running mills back with wet leather, stuffing where it's warm. Back to your main point, I mean, it's a physical job. In certain areas, there's a fair amount of repetition. People just feel like there's easier ways, I guess. It's not an impossible job. It's just a question of if you find people that will do that sort of work where you are. Physically, it's very demanding. Yes. I mean, it's like anything else. You get used to it. But like when you first started, I mean, I thought that I was at that point in time still physically fairly strong. And you got used to it, but you definitely, when you first started, like I'd come back from school and go do that. The second day when I came back, my forearms and hands were not all that happy.
I mean, I piled out one color drum, and the guys,
Yep.
a normal day they'll do two. I was
Yep.
broken from
Right.
120 sides or whatever it was, and that's just piling out the drum. It's pretty
Yeah. I mean,
pretty brutal. So yeah, maybe I would take
You
the
know, I mean,
Chick-fil-A job if the pay is the
There's
same.
a lot of technique to that piling too that you probably don't
Oh,
get
for
your
sure.
first time around. I mean, because it's hard. I mean, you're bending over and picking up wet leather that's slippery, and there's probably some humidity. Well, there's definitely humidity, but there's probably some heat too, depending on what's going on around you. But I would have liked to watch you, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. And
I mean,
I don't know if the only person that saw me was Octavio, and he was laughing at me.
I mean, it used to take me about a week. I mean, by the second week, I was pretty much, your technique got there, and your endurance for that got there, and
Well, let me ask you something, Skip, because I think labor is a big part of it. But also, I recall a moment in the beginning of the pandemic where you you called me or I called you. You told me a story about how your suppliers were telling you, "Hey, there's going to be price increases. We don't know how much it's going to be, but you can expect them." Have
right.
you sort of navigated through that situation now, or things a little bit
No,
more reliable?
that's still going on.
Okay.
I mean, our suppliers at this point are basically updating prices monthly, and that presumes that they have materials to send you. I mean, there's still spot shortages of things, and a lot of that has had to do with freight. But we had a couple of things we ordered with sort of triple our usual lead time for a much higher price, and we had some stuff get hung up in customs on the East Coast because some of those things are no longer made here. We were out for a couple of weeks, and there wasn't any. And it's not something that somebody stocks here in a warehouse someplace. This is we are our own warehouse on that.
Well, I don't want to give away any of your trade secrets, but can you tell me what that particular material was that stuff to get? Or
Well, one of them was one of our bark extracts for our retanning formulas.
where does that come from?
That's stuck in customs. Well, this particular one I believe was coming from South America, but it got hung up in customs, and we buy a lot for us, but we're not necessarily a full container, and so for whatever they're looking at, and look, the customs guys, they got to do their jobs. I get it, but you'd call and try and go, so what's it looking like? Well, whenever we're ready, and we don't have to tell you. Thanks. That's not actually helping me. We're planning to actually increase the amount of inventory of critical materials that we have, and I know that other guys in the industry have as well. I mean, I would probably get to a place where for some of those that I would be intending to hold 6 months plus of stuff.
It's appropriate because we're talking about just-in-time inventory,
right?
And before, and how we don't do that because the process doesn't lend itself to that, and also we can't really. I mean, it's not. I mean, and we can't do that and then deliver product in anything that resembles a timely manner.
Right. Certainly not our process.